And then shouldn't the whole system just be put outside the chum bucket to keep everyone away? Now it just feels like it's deliberately...
Oh my, CinemaSins tier criticism. Shouldn't you have put the barricade outside of the chum bucket instead of inside? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. But then SpongeBob and Patrick wouldn't have been able to see it when they came out of the bathroom. Like, what do you want? What do you want here? Yeah, sure.
This is where the real story begins. However...
No, it's not. It always says weird stuff like that. This is where the real story begins. It said something like that earlier where it's like, and this is where the problems start. Like, it always has those like filler words, those filler sentences in there.
Since the whole idea is to make it more character driven, we could focus more on Squidward for this one. Episode
could have benefited from having Squidward, who seems to have the biggest arc in the episode, have more of a rejection of Halloween. Could benefit from Squidward. Awfully coincidental that their fix of the episode involves Squidward having more of a presence, and that was my fix as well. This thumbnail, I cannot for the life of me guess what this video is. What if modern SpongeBob used the classic narration style, and we have 1999 and 2023? With the arrow. Why 2023? It's 2026. Is it that the episode that they're talking about aired in 2023? It just feels weird to say 2023 as like modern when like, yeah, I guess that's still modern. It was only 3 years ago, but it's still not now. Like, you know, usually if you do like a thumbnail where it's like a year, and it's like going back to a year, the year you want to put is the year that it currently is, not the year that was 3 years ago. It almost makes the video seem like it was posted in 2023. Like, I know I can see like 7 days ago, like it was posted this year, but like if I was just scrolling past thumbnails and not looking at the 7 days ago and I saw something that said 2023, I would think that it's an outdated video. So let's just see what this is, because I have no idea what it even is.
Modern SpongeBob is just shallow compared to the classics.
Hey, I call modern SpongeBob shallow all the time.
Everything was louder in comparison. The references are meh. And let's not forget the biggest flaw of all, the flanderization.
Wait. Look at this.
Everything was louder in comparison.
Everything was louder in comparison. They're referring to modern SpongeBob. Modern SpongeBob is louder. This shot is from Nasty Patty. This is season 3. They don't know.
The references are meh.
The references are meh. That's from Hooky. That's season 1.
And let's not...
And look at that bubble transition. That bubble transition, that's not from the show. That bubble transition is from the official SpongeBob YouTube account to transition between the clips that they're putting on their YouTube account.
Forget the biggest flaw of all.
Forget the biggest flaw of all.
The flanderization.
The biggest flaw of all, referring to modern SpongeBob shows 3 clips that are from classic SpongeBob. Embarrassing. That's embarrassing. And you know why they think that this is modern SpongeBob? Because it's the aspect ratio. It's 16:9 aspect ratio. But the only reason that this is 16:9 aspect ratio is because that's how it's presented on the SpongeBob YouTube channel. Whereas this episode would usually be a square in its aspect ratio. They used clips from classic SpongeBob while criticizing modern SpongeBob. That is so confusing.
That episode is the Haunted Bucket. So I'm thinking...
The Haunted Bucket. Oh, that's funny. I liked this episode. I spoke positively of it. Why are they releasing a video about a Halloween special in March? It's weird.
Not as in a spooky episode released at Halloween, but as in celebrating Halloween as the setting of the episode. Like I Was a Teenage Gary, those were Halloween special episodes, but it's not about celebrating Halloween.
Wait,
the only other 2 Halloween-themed, those were Halloween special episodes, but...
Why is it rock bottom footage? This isn't I Was a Teenage Gary, this is rock bottom.
We can see that the Krusty Krab has gone all out with its decorations, to the point that it almost feels too bright to be spooky.
Too bright to be spooky. I thought this looked great. It's a weird criticism. Too bright to be spooky. I mean, it wasn't really supposed to be spooky. It's supposed to be that they decorated the Krusty Krab, so why would it being bright? I thought this looked great, art direction-wise.
just finished his shift, so he rushes out to meet his best friend Patrick because they wanted
There's recapping.
to spend the rest of the night celebrating Halloween, dressed together as a sea mule, which, unfortunately, both of them prepared the rear end part.
Oh my God, just explaining the joke, man. Yes, watch it. Wait, okay, so you're talking about how this episode wasn't very good, yet you're explaining the joke. I thought it wasn't a good episode, dude. Why are you stealing its joke then, if it's so bad?
See you're both dressing up as idiots for Halloween this year.
Then they tell Squidward every little detail of
I guess you must have liked that joke, because you used it in the clip.
the whole setup for the plot feels somewhat forced. It was as if you could really read the writer's thoughts behind the opening scene. Like, oh, let's make the three of them go to Spooky Chum Bucket for Halloween. Yeah, but for what reason? Maybe let's make Squidward irritated by them. So he told him to go.
That's not really forced at all. That's not really a criticism. It's funny because I say stuff like that a lot, but I didn't say that about this episode. But I do say a lot like, this feels forced. This communicates that the writers didn't like know how to make this happen organically. Like, I do say that a lot. So I feel like the AI gets a little bit of that from me. I didn't say that about this episode. Because I didn't think that that was forced.
Really understand why they have to go to the chum bucket, except for the fact that, well, they're stupid and pretty easygoing. Now, there are...
Wait, but didn't Squidward say that it was haunted? It's just getting the details wrong.
To give you guys a clearer picture, I'm going to compare this to the episode Club SpongeBob, another episode that revolves...
That is a lot of my formula. I will compare to a classic episode. I do that a lot. I'm probably not the only person who does that, though.
Revolves around the three of them going on a wacky adventure that actually feels really natural.
They don't go on a wacky adventure in Club SpongeBob. They get stranded. I guess you could call it a wacky adventure would be that they go like to a place specifically for an intended goal. They more get stranded. It's not really a wacky adventure.
It's one of the better examples of their classic narration style in season 3.
Wait, what does that mean, narration style? Am I missing something? I thought when it said narration style that it would be like the narrator. Like, what does that mean, narration style? That's very incoherent. I'm curious, how do you correctly recap an episode? Yeah, so if you're a creator and you are talking about an episode of a show, you will have to do some kind of recapping. Absolutely. This is always the case. Basically, as a creator, you need to be aware of how much of your script is saying what the plot of the episode is and how much of it is your thoughts. This is what's known as transformative content. The part of the content that is transformative is the part that you create. So let's say I am talking about Club SpongeBob, and I say that Club SpongeBob is a commentary on religious thinking, because that's kind of what Club SpongeBob is about. It's about religion and the magic conch. They worship it like religion. So when I say SpongeBob then pulls out the magic conch and asks it a question, that's me recapping the episode. But then when I say Squidward being a non-believer is analogous to a non-believer in real life, that's transformative. That's my observation. So when you write a script, you should probably have, there's really no magic number for it, but I would say the recapping shouldn't be more than 10% of any given video, saying what's happening in the plot. And where your recapping is should be in between observations. And most importantly, if you recap something in an episode, it should be absolutely relevant to your point. So SpongeTruths and No Villains Are Safe that we looked at last week, they do this where they will constantly recap parts of the episode that have nothing to do with their point. I'll give a good explanation of like bad recapping and good recapping.
It opens up with Squidward cycling to Krusty Krab for his shift.
It opens up with Squidward cycling to Krusty Krab. It always says to Krusty Krab, not the Krusty Krab. That's weird, right?
Right? But before he could even leave Conch Street, he heard Patrick and SpongeBob laughing from above. They kept throwing inside jokes that only made themselves laugh to the point that it
he heard. So look at all the different sentences it's using to describe the opening of the episode.
Really irritates Squidward. So now Squidward got even more annoyed and said, well, what does it take to be a member, aside from being stupid? Which they replied, you can't even get in, even though you tried. Then Squidward
even though you tried, just incoherent.
Squidward gets mad because it clearly hurt his ego. That's who he is. He will always want to prove that he's the better person. So he climbs
So it's just describing the character,
up the vine and forces
recapping.
himself inside. After that, Squidward will try to get himself out by grabbing the stalk beside the clubhouse, pulling everything near the ground, and catapulting the three of them to the kelp forest to begin their adventure.
Okay, so look at that. So this is the description of the beginning of Club SpongeBob. It took
Crab for his ship.
All right, 4:24 to 5:20. So let's say it was a minute. It took them 1 minute to describe the opening scene of Club SpongeBob. Let's see how long it took me to do it in my actual Club SpongeBob video.
Conch.
Let's see how long it took me to do it.
So the episode begins with Squidward getting annoyed with SpongeBob and Patrick, who are sitting in this treehouse and have adopted this strange speech pattern where every word they speak starts with a W.
Okay, so I emphasized the speech pattern. So the reason I emphasized the speech pattern is because this was about how this episode talks about religion. So the reason I emphasized the speech pattern with the W's is because that comes up later where I talk about how it's in-group, out-group mentality, how religions will do similar things like with speaking in tongues and stuff. So that was why I pointed that out.
Hey, look! It's Squidward!
This immediately establishes a sort of in-group.
Already, look. So this is the difference between my recapping and SpongeTruths.
The magic conch. So the episode begins with Squidward getting annoyed with SpongeBob and Patrick, who are sitting in this treehouse and have adopted this strange speech pattern where every word they speak starts with a W.
Hey, look! It's Squidward!
It took roughly 20 seconds for me to describe the first scene. Okay? So now we're at 48. 20 seconds of describing the scene, and now...
Squidward!
This immediately establishes a sort of in-group, out-group dynamic between our two.
This establishes an in-group, out-group. So that's me. That's the transformative part. So the first part, I was describing the episode. That was 20 seconds. That was recapping. That is complete recapping. And you have to, because the audience wouldn't really have the context if they don't. But now I'm saying my part.
SpongeBob and Patrick have this high-up distance. They are speaking strangely. They are talking about how Squidward isn't a member of the club.
So that's half recap. So now what I did there is now that I've established that I am making a point, now my recapping is in between me making that point. So I'm saying, oh, they're speaking strangely, they're doing this, they're saying Squidward's not in the club. But I already said this is about in-group, out-group. So now you're thinking, oh yeah, this episode is about an in-group, out-group mentality. And then at this point in the video, you're like, oh, like that is what this episode is about. So my recapping is becoming more transformative.
This leads to Squidward getting stuck inside the treehouse. Already, this opening gives the audience a lot of dense concepts about the nature of communication, how easily communication can be muddled and misunderstood, and the nature of the desire for the out-group to want to be a part of the in-group.
So you see how I'm putting in a lot of my thoughts in between the recapping. This is what makes me not just recapping. I'm putting in my actual thoughts. It's about putting it in between. Think of it like you're baking cookies. The sugar and the actual flour, the part of the cookie, that's supposed to be you talking. And the chocolate chips are supposed to be the recapping. It's there, but it's also mixed in. It's not all on one side. It's not the whole cookie is chocolate chips. It's little bits of it. Little bits of it is in there. It's important. So the recapping is like the chocolate chips, and you making transformative observations is the rest of the cookie, is the majority of the cookie. So instead, what SpongeTruths does is they recap for a very long time, and then they make a point. And the point is usually pretty shallow. And the reason that they recap for so long and then make the point is because that point is shallow. Because they know that they don't have enough actual observations to make the video work, or AI can't produce enough actual observations. You tell AI to write you a script about an episode of a show, it's gonna do mostly recapping. AI has a harder time coming up with real thoughts because it's AI, and it also can't tell the difference. It can't really tell the difference meaningfully between recapping and making a point. I feel like a more extensive recap is needed more for discussions on modern episodes. It's pretty safe to assume most people watching this have seen Club SpongeBob but not Haunted Bucket. You should always assume, as the creator, that your audience has not seen the episode. You should always assume that. equally, whether it's a modern episode or not. I get what you mean, and I'm sure you could find examples in my videos where I probably recap a classic episode less for that reason. So like I get what you mean, and there definitely are times for that. But if you're looking directly like in a vacuum, you should think I need to make sure my audience has the context of what's going on, regardless of how popular the episode actually is. But there are exceptions to that rule.
There's just not enough reason for Squidward to trick them into entering the chum bucket. You can enhance it by making them.
I don't think I mean, obviously Club SpongeBob is a stronger opening than the Haunted Bucket. I don't think it's a great comparison though. I think that they're just different situations. Like in Haunted Bucket, Squidward tells SpongeBob and Patrick to go to the chum bucket because he wants them to get stuck there, because he knows that if he goes home, SpongeBob and Patrick are going to be really annoying. They're going to be loud watching scary movies because it's Halloween. They're going to be extra annoying. So he comes up with a lie to get them out of a situation. And then later on, Patrick brings Squidward into the situation at the chum bucket, and it teaches Squidward the lesson that because Squidward tried to get rid of them, he ended up stuck in the situation himself. So they're just kind of different openings. You know, it hasn't been really answering the question of the video. It's just been saying why it doesn't have the same narrative style, but the title is yet to be answered, even addressed. The title is completely incoherent. Use the classic narration style. I think whoever runs SpongeTruths doesn't speak English. I'm very sure. So whatever this means, I think what this is supposed to mean is, what if modern SpongeBob told stories like classic SpongeBob, but because SpongeTruths or whoever's behind SpongeTruths doesn't speak English, whatever it translated into was this, and that looked correct to them. What it's actually saying is, what if it told stories like classic SpongeBob that's what it means. It's just incoherent in its delivery of that because it's not correct. Also, this episode, the thumbnail said 2023. This episode came out in 2025. Why does the thumbnail say 2023? I said that the thumbnail being 2023 should mean that it was a modern episode for 2023, but this is literally from 2025. This is from 2025. So why, like, you could have said 2025. That would have been better because that's a closer year to now. Like, it's only March as of this stream. So like, something came out in March 2026 and it said the modern thing does this and it said 2025, I would think of that as, okay, that's very close to now. But 2023 was a long time ago now. Even though AI sucks, I'd find it really funny if other shows got stupid channels like this. Would love to see how off the wall Breaking Bad truths would be. I'm sure they have it. I'm sure that's a thing. I'm sure there's the No Villains Are Safe has a Walter White video. So it's a thing. It's everywhere. 2023 was a long time ago. It's not something I'm ready to hear. It wasn't that long ago, but it was a while ago. 2023 was when I started doing YouTube. So 3 years ago, 2023, at this time, I wasn't a YouTuber. So it was a long time ago for me, at least.
The real problem in the story only starts when they go inside the chum bucket.
Wait. That's so, what are you talking about? You're 7 minutes in. The real problem starts when they go into the chum bucket. But why did you cite Club SpongeBob? You said that this was a problem.
Like, why did Plankton hate Halloween in the first place? Is it because he had a history with the trick?
What? That's not a criticism. What do you mean? Of course Plankton wouldn't want a bunch of people knocking on his door late at night. It's self-explanatory. He's a villain. He doesn't want to give away candy to kids because he's a bad guy. You don't need an explanation for it.
And then shouldn't the whole system just be put outside the chum bucket to keep everyone away? Now it just feels like it's deliberately...
Oh my, CinemaSins tier criticism. Shouldn't you have put the barricade outside of the chum bucket instead of inside? Yeah, sure. But then SpongeBob and Patrick wouldn't have been able to see it when they came out of the bathroom. Like, what do you want? What do you want here? Yeah, sure.
Made to conveniently trap SpongeBob and Patrick inside rather than the opposite. You know what's also convenient?
Well, if it was outside of the chum bucket, it would still trap them inside. If it was like directly outside of the front door, it would still trap them inside. It just would be harder for the audience to follow that they were stuck. Also, the Chum Bucket's a restaurant, so if a bunch of trick-or-treating kids were gonna go into the Chum Bucket, they would just they would try to open the door too. So, because it's a restaurant, you go into the door of a restaurant, you don't knock on a door of a restaurant. So it actually does make sense.
I know who we can ask. Squidward!
Oh, come on, that was funny, man. I'm sorry. I will defend that writing choice. I will go to bat for modern SpongeBob for that writing choice. The fact that the narrative was just like, nah, Patrick's just gonna pull Squidward out of his pants, and now he's just there. I'm sorry, I defend that. I think that that's fine. I think that it's just like, it's basically what this communicated to me was the karma of the universe was so intent on getting back at Squidward for tricking SpongeBob and Patrick for what he did to SpongeBob and Patrick, that Patrick just pulls him out of his pants. Like, I think that is like fine. I think it's like such an example of like, no, you can't run away from your problems. If you do something wrong to people, it's gonna come back to bite you, even in ways you never could have expected. And it also gets around the fact that Plankton like locked up the Chum Bucket. Like, I think it was great. I think that was a fine writing choice. But if you're SpongeTruths cinema sins, you're gonna be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Also, it does work a little bit because it's a long running show. Like I think that this joke actually wouldn't have really worked as well if it was like in season 1. Like, that is true. If Patrick just pulled Squidward out of his pants in like jellyfishing in like the 4th episode, it'd be like, what? Like, it'd be weird. But we do know these characters, and it's been 16 seasons with them, and we know that Squidward always ends up in the situation with them. And yeah, that does make the joke land more. Like, it does, you know? Like, and you got to give the writers a little bit of credit for that they did understand that it would land there. And it's also narratively deserved because Squidward did something bad earlier. Yeah.
Just like that, Squidward has to be included in the journey. I don't want to keep saying the same words, but it does really feel forced again. They don't even
Disagree. It's not forced. I don't think it's forced at all.
bother thinking of some, I don't know, clever way to make Squidward enter the Chum Bucket on his own. Anyway.
But that was a clever way to make Squidward enter the Chum Bucket on his own. He pulled him out of his pants. It was just cosmic circumstance. You can't escape from your problems the way Squidward did. What Squidward did was wrong, so he ended up stuck in the situation.
So they said, fine, if it's a scare they want, I will give them a scare. Shouldn't you hate Halloween, Plankton? Now, this is the second flaw of the episode.
What? No. Shouldn't you hate Halloween, Plankton? I mean, Plankton would like tormenting people. Like, he'd like to torment intruders. But he wasn't like... That's not inconsistent. That Plankton wanted to torture them because they invaded his space, but he also put up the barricade so that no one would invade the space. If anything, that makes sense because Plankton put up the barricade showing that he did not want people in the Chum Bucket on Halloween. But now that he's been alerted that someone broke through that barricade, now he wants to torment them. That doesn't have anything to do with him hating Halloween. I think he just wants to get back at the people that invaded his home.
In Club SpongeBob, right after they got lost in the kelp forest, they started to talk about how dire the situation was that they were in, highlighting each of their own personalities.
Does the Haunted Bucket not show their individual personalities? I guess SpongeBob and Patrick are kind of a unit in the Haunted Bucket. Again, like, I'm not going to be like, yeah, Club SpongeBob's a better episode for sure. But also, in Club SpongeBob, they were in a more dire situation. They were in a survival situation. In the Haunted Bucket, they're trapped in the Chum Bucket, but them being trapped in the Chum Bucket isn't like the really dangerous thing. As soon as like the ghosts start attacking, that's like when it's more dangerous. So you're just kind of, you're comparing different sort of situations and acting like one is better when they're really just different. Even though I do think Club SpongeBob is a better episode than the Haunted Bucket.
After that, we get almost 3 minutes full of slapstick jokes where Plankton chases them by swinging Ghost Karen everywhere, which makes the three of them run inside the basement and then later hit every...
There is a lot more slapstick in modern SpongeBob. That is true. And I'm sure that in this episode is a symptom of that. There is a lot in the Haunted Bucket where they lean a lot more into the slapstick and there's less opportunity for story. That is true.
Actually open up some kind of spectral gateway for every kind of ghost to come in. Squidward actually asks why why the first ghost looked like a cowboy, which Plankton answered with,
Well, I've
Oh my goodness, are they going to recap every different ghost bit? They are, right? Let's see.
so added that the ancient cowboy burial ground was made on top of a pet cemetery, a shipwreck, and a prehistoric tar pit.
Yep, so here's how I recap this scene.
which ends up backfiring on them when they release the actual real ghosts into the chum bucket. I did really enjoy the bit where all the different kinds of ghosts come out with Plankton explaining all the different kinds of burial grounds that the chum bucket is built on.
So see how I did that differently? So I said that I liked that joke. And the reason that I said that I liked that joke is because modern SpongeBob is known for like not being very funny. So I did want to acknowledge that it was a good joke. So I said with Plankton explaining all the different kinds of burial grounds the chum bucket is built on. Notice how I didn't say every different joke.
Explanations as to why Chum Bucket is cursed and always feel
As to why Chum Bucket is cursed. It's weird they don't say the. It's weird that they don't say the with Chum Bucket and Krusty Krab. Like Krusty Krab. Going to Krusty Krab. Why Chum Bucket? They don't say the. It's very weird. Another indication that SpongeTruths does not speak English.
Unfortunately, now all the ghosts are causing mayhem and scaring them because, well, it's Halloween. However, it didn't stop there. The ghost
I think they scared them because they're ghosts, not because it's Halloween. The ghosts are in the episode because it's Halloween, like from a writing perspective, but the ghosts aren't like it's Halloween will scare you.
This is where the real story begins. However,
No, it's not. It always says weird stuff like that. This is where the real story begins. It said something like that earlier where it's like, and this is where the problems start. Like it always has those like filler words, those filler sentences in there. My guess is because the isn't on the restaurant signs in the show. The signs are just called Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yet every time they say it in the show, they say the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket. No one would ever say they go to Chum Bucket. It's just not how it's ever said in the show.
this is meant to be the big idea for the episode. Shouldn't you open the portal sooner? Like, you could make SpongeBob and Patrick go straight to the basement from...
Yeah, that wasn't really my criticism of the episode. Would that have made it like a better episode though? Like, does that matter? Does the amount of time they spent solving the problem? I guess like what it's doing is it's acting as though the premise of the episode is the ghost taking over Bikini Bottom, but really that's not. The premise of the episode is that they're stuck in the chum bucket and Plankton and Karen are scaring them, and the ghost getting summoned is actually a surprise. So the fact that the ghost gets summoned so late into the episode is actually a great way to take the viewer on more of a journey, because we think that the episode is just going to be Karen and Plankton messing with them, and then they release the real ghosts, and that's a bigger deal. But that only really works if the real ghosts get released later in the episode. If the real ghosts got released earlier in the episode, like this video is saying, that actually would have lost that. And the actual time it takes to like solve the problem with the ghosts isn't really an issue. I actually like that a lot more of this episode was mostly between those couple of characters, and then it upped itself in scale at the end.
Whip out the magic conch, which says what she wants, and then the universe just grants them the whole picnic supply drop from a plane because they followed the order. And then the ending is...
No, that is very media illiterate. Wait, that's so not... That is the opposite of what the episode is communicating. The reason that they show the plane is to show that it's a coincidence. The magic conch did not make the food fall. SpongeBob and Patrick think that it did because the plane coincidentally dropped the food at the same time. That's why they show that. Holy media illiteracy. Of course the AI believes in the conch god. That's so true. AI would have an agenda to want to think that, because the AI is the magic conch. AI just copies stuff on the internet, so someone else must have said that. Oh, definitely. Like, definitely it's just someone... And that's kind of the thing with like AI is like, because anyone can use AI to make a video and output this many videos in like no time, it removes the barrier for the people who need to make videos to be like more media literate on average. You can get videos that get a lot of views just by brute forcing them out. Before, it wasn't like that. Before AI, you really would have had to have media literacy to do that. But now, because an AI will pull from everywhere, so AI will only be as media illiterate as the average people are, which is not very, you know? Or before, a person, when only people could make videos, the people who would make the most videos would usually be the most media literate people. There was a selection process where only the people that were the best at writing scripts and making observations would make videos, because those were the only people who could actually reasonably get a good amount of views when they put out their videos. Whereas now you can make bad videos, but if you make enough bad videos that you brute force them out and you post 3 times a week, and you also put barely any effort and barely any time into those videos, you can make this happen. And it makes the overall population less intelligent and less media literate. And that's why generative AI should be banned.
Everything that happened before and after is just an exaggeration of their own beliefs. And as viewers, we fall.
What? No, it's not. An exaggeration of their own beliefs. This is, watch my video on the Magic Conch. Mine's better. I have a better analysis on this. Hey guys, what if AI never existed? I'd be criticizing something else right now, and we'd probably not have so many problems that we're going to need to solve soon.
Meanwhile, in Haunted Bucket, or modern SpongeBob
Why is Sandy there? Sandy's not even in Haunted Bucket.
in general, it often feels like SpongeBob and the others are reacting to a plot that, conveniently, was already decided for them. Squidward.
That's not that's not correct about this episode. Squidward had a specific character flaw that got challenged.
Now, maybe some of you are going to say, Haunted Bucket and Club SpongeBob are two very different scenarios. You
I said that. yeah, they are. They're very different.
can't really compare them apple to apple, and make everything about the character in such a horror plot. Well, we also have Shanghai.
Wait, you're just agreeing with that? Wait, I thought you were going to refute that. They're like, you might be saying thing that I said. Well, yeah, you're correct. Okay. Then why did you compare it to Club SpongeBob the whole video and then concede that they're different episodes? And they're also saying it just on the grounds that one is a horror episode. And well, you can compare something that's like a horror episode to a non-horror episode. Like, that's fine. That's not why I said that they weren't the same. I said that they weren't the same because they just had different messages.
Since the whole idea is to make it more character-driven, we could focus more on Squidward for this one.
You could focus more on Squidward for this one. Episode could have benefited from having Squidward, who seems to have the biggest arc in the episode, have more of a rejection of Halloween. Could benefit from Squidward. Awfully coincidental that their fix of the episode involves Squidward having more of a presence, and that was my fix as well.
So he tells them to go to the chum bucket in hope that they wouldn't get back for the rest of the night. Then the two of them could go straight to the chum bucket.
Wait, that's what happens. Wait, why is your rewrite what happens? You criticized that earlier, and you're now saying in your rewrite, this is my rewrite, says what the actual plot of the episode is.
Squidward could get dragged into the adventure by having one of the ghosts terrorize him in his own home before SpongeBob and Patrick come to his rescue.
I think that's weaker. Like I said earlier, the reason that the ghosts come into the episode so late is that it's an escalation. So the conflict of the episode is them avoiding Plankton and Karen, and then the ghosts come in later to escalate the plot, and it makes these characters, so SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick, they're stuck in the chum bucket, and it's the 3 of them versus Karen and Plankton. And then as soon as they open the portal with the ghosts, the 5 of them have to come together and work together. So the episode kind of comments on some distinct character flaws, like Squidward makes a bad choice, makes SpongeBob and Patrick go to the chum bucket. This leads to Squidward getting stuck with them. That's Squidward's punishment. Then Plankton gets alerted that they're in the chum bucket. Instead of Plankton just asking them politely to leave, Plankton torments them. So now Plankton makes the bad choice, and now Plankton gets punished because now the ghosts are released. So these characters who were at odds with one another are now forced to work together. And that's kind of the reason that the narrative escalates in that way. If you remove Squidward from the narrative until the ghosts come into the story, you lose a lot of that. You lose so much of that. You know what's odd about this video? There is some stuff in this video that seems to make a lot of sense. Like, this is actually a scarier SpongeTruths video than any of the ones I've watched so far. And I'm not just saying that because it's covering a Halloween episode, but it's actually kind of nerve-wracking how it will say things like character-driven story. Because I know this is written with AI. I know this is nonsense. I know this is not like someone who's a real person, you know, and all that sort of stuff. It's still incoherent in a lot of ways. There's still a lot wrong with it. But the fact that it is saying things like character-driven conversations, which I'm sure it took from somewhere else, but the fact that it can take that from somewhere else and put it into this, I'd say that's kind of scary. That's kind of bad. That it can do that at all. I mean, overall, it's a pretty bad video. Like it's not, it's, you know, it's still an AI voice. It's still very shallow, still very media illiterate. It still doesn't have that human touch, which it never would because it uses AI. Does the Haunted Bucket feel like a pre-movie episode? No, it feels like a good modern episode. That's how I would describe it. But does the Flying Dutchman need to be in every Halloween episode? No, not really. I don't think this episode really needed a rewrite. It probably took it from somewhere else. It just didn't take it from me, is all. Like, it really didn't. There was a few things that I feel like came from my videos, but they also were kind of simple observations, you know? I wouldn't be too egotistical to say that they're from my videos specifically. It's odd that that video had this thumbnail. Like, it's just very weird. 2023. You'd think it'd want to show the episode at least with like the Haunted Bucket. I don't know. I just think it's weird. Also, it says 1999. Club SpongeBob didn't come out in 1999. 1999 is season 1. Also, the Haunted Bucket came out in 2025, not 2023.